Hello, I'm Laura McPhee, Insight Editor at Pensions Insight and Engaged Investor magazines, and I'm here with Hugh Cutler, Head of Europe and Middle East at Legal & General Investment Management. Good to have you here, Hugh.
Good to be here, Laura.
So today we're talking about DC, and I was just wondering what you thought the main trends in default design were at the moment and what sort of direction schemes should be heading in.
Yeah. So I think in default design, there's a pretty clear trend now for the growth phase towards diversified fund strategies, so diversified growth strategies, and I think that's a very positive trend for the DC industry. Historically, I think defaults have been more concentrated on solely equity strategies, and so this, I think, gives a better balance of risk and reward, which I think is appropriate. There's also a lot of focus now on starting to think about the sort of pre-retirement phase. And again, historically when DC schemes were set up, pre-retirement phase seemed a long way away. Most of the members were young,
yes.
and quite straightforward. Long-dated gilt strategies were common, but now there's been a lot more innovation from the industry in terms of pre-retirement strategies that look to more closely match the costs of buying an annuity or even preparing people for income drawdown. So there, I think, the two main things that we're seeing.
And do you think we're seeing a bit more flexibility about the way people prepare for retirement?
Well, there's been changes in the legislation which give a bit more flexibility at retirement, but when you realise that the average DC pot for people retiring today in the UK is only £30,000, that's not providing the kind of income in retirement that opens up those options for most people. So the vast majority of people will still be buying an annuity. So although there is more flexibility there, for most DC schemes, corporate DC schemes, the majority of the members will probably still be buying an annuity. There has been more innovation in areas like impaired life annuities, enhanced annuities, where people can get an additional income if they can prove various medical conditions, and they don't need to be serious. Just high blood pressure or something like that will allow people to get a bit of extra pension. So there's been quite a lot of innovation there. But I think over the coming years, as more people retire with more substantial pots because they've just been in longer,
yes,
and DC's been a bigger part of their retirement savings, I think we do need to see more innovation there. And realistically, for someone retiring at age 60 or 65, who might live or be expected to live to be 90, I think a woman at 65 now, if they're in good health, would expect to live to 90. Being fully invested in an annuity that's fully backed by bonds with capital guarantee, etc., is likely to be quite an expensive investment strategy. And so having investment strategies that allow people to carry on taking risk post-retirement and hence potentially have a higher level of retirement income given the long time frame, I think is where the industry now really needs to innovate.
And do you think there are lessons that they could learn from what people are doing overseas?
Yes, I think there's lessons on multiple fronts. I think in terms of the regulation and auto-enrollment and sort of encouraging people to save, interestingly, models like Chile are actually potentially quite interesting, where they started, I think, in 1995 with their sort of compulsory saving, and that's a very well-funded now sort of DC system. So I think that in terms of regulation and auto-enrollment, there's some lessons for us there. In terms of investment design, the US is a sort of hotbed of innovation,
yes, of
but quite a lot of it hasn't really worked. So a lot of the, say, target date funds that have been run in the US were not successful through the financial crisis. They plummeted. Even target date funds that were due to mature in a couple of years plummeted in value in 2008, 2009, the financial crisis. So I think there's things that we can learn, not to do. One of the lessons that is definitely out there for us, which I think we can see in Australia, in the Netherlands, and also in the Nordic countries as well, is that by aggregating asset pools into large pots, then you get a lot more efficiency. So in the UK market, there are something like 8,000 pension schemes. This applies to DB and DC as well, but particularly with DC, there's a lot of very small schemes. They don't necessarily have efficient governance, they don't have the best fund choices, they don't have the lowest possible costs. So I think the UK industry could learn something about the aggregation. So I'd say, strengthening auto enrolment, taking that further, making the contribution levels higher, aggregating DC plans so that we get really high quality governance, high quality investment choices, low costs, not making some of the mistakes of excessive choice and complex design that the US have gone down. And then looking at this sort of at-retirement problem,
yes,
both from a regulatory and a product provider perspective, I think would be the main takeaways for us as we look around the world.